Welcome to the Fantasy Source Baseball Podcast. My name is David A. Arnott, sitting here with George Winkler. And earlier in the week, Bill Bender and I talked about the surprises in the American League early on in the fantasy baseball season. And now we get to talk about the National League surprises. And right near the top of the list, at least from a fantasy perspective, Joel Hanrahan. 4 saves, leading Major League Baseball.
Yeah, the Pirates have been an early surprise, and I have a friend who's a Bucks fan, and he's emailing me about Joel Hanrahan every day. So I liked Hanrahan coming into the season because of his K rate, but, he'll have some problems like the other night when he'll let some base runners on. And the Pirates, won't always be running off wins like they are. But I like Hanrahan as a second closer. The Pirates have a tougher road next week, though. They play Milwaukee and then Cincinnati in Great American Ballpark.
Well, the difficult thing with Hanrahan to realize is that even though he's probably been a name on fantasy radars for a few years, I believe he was with Washington before he was in Pittsburgh, Evan Meek actually got more closing opportunities last year, even though Hanrahan is probably the better pitcher. And Meek, even though he's had a terrible early start to the season, he's still the setup guy. He still has a shine of proven closerness about him, and he might actually be able to step in if Hanrahan struggles at all.
Yeah, and Meek was the all-star representative for the Pirates last year. But yeah, the combination of Hanrahan getting off to a quick start and Meek not doing so well, I think it's good for Hanrahan. You can actually feel pretty safe about him, I think, for the next at least month or so.
And then, of course, their starting pitching, nominal ace, I guess you could call him, Kevin Correa, former San Francisco Giant, shortstop in college, sign and follow, and then had such a live arm. He made it to the major leagues pretty much on the strength of that. Maybe I always confuse him with Jeremy Accardo. Jeremy Accardo might have been the former shortstop. I don't know. But he had a monster first 2 starts.
He did. A 1.38 ERA, 2-0. We kind of chuckled when they named him as their opening day starter, but he was decent with the Padres last year, and here he comes with the Pirates, but I'm skeptical about him. I actually have him as my stumbler in the week ahead column because, Milwaukee and Cincinnati next week. Like I said, pitching at Cincinnati, they put up a lot of runs there early. And Milwaukee's hitter has some really good hitters.
Well, you bring up Cincinnati. They're an interesting team this year. They won the NL Central, if I recall correctly, last year. They've got a bunch of guys who can do some fantasy damage, starting with Joey Votto, but then going down the lineup. What have you seen with them, and do you think that this is going to be a season-wide trend?
Well, Joey Votto's still MVP caliber, and then Jay Bruce and Drew Stubbs have been as good as advertised. So things are looking very good for the hitters in Cincinnati. But there's been some pitching surprises, too. Mike Leake and Travis Wood were good right out of the gate. So, I like them. The Reds have San Diego and Pittsburgh next week, so their pitchers should be set up for a good week.
So let's turn to the other side of the coin, as it were, and the teams that aren't doing nearly as well, that are disappointing their fantasy owners right now. Who would you think of first when you think of teams that have been disappointing in the early going?
Well, I would think of the world champion San Francisco Giants. They come out of the gate 1-4, and they obviously have some outfield problems with Aubrey Huff and Pat Burrell. It's allowed Brandon Belt to get into the lineup, but they seriously have to consider throwing Nate Shearholtz over there to get through this period while Cody Ross is injured.
Yeah, it's a real-life problem causing problems for fantasy owners where Aubrey Huff and Pat Burrell in the corner outfields, it reminds me of Jose Canseco and Glenn Allen Hill that the Yankees had 10, 12 years ago, whatever it was. And it's just absolutely awful. It's disturbing to watch, and it might not be sustainable even for the few weeks until Cody Ross gets back.
I think they really have to rethink this and throw Shearholtz in right, and maybe put Huff and Burrell in a platoon in left if they're insistent upon Belt at first base, which they kind of can't go back on that now that they've made that decision. But yeah, watching them play outfield in that first series against the Dodgers was absolutely brutal, and unless you're Tim Lincecum striking out 13 guys a game, it's going to be hard to pitch well with a defense like that.
And of course, that would basically kill everyone's fantasy value. All 3 of those guys' fantasy values right there. Shearholtz, obviously, in NL-only leagues would get a boost. But if Huff and Burrell get platooned, as good as they are, unless you're in a daily lead, a really deep daily lead, you probably wouldn't be worth keeping them around, right?
Well, Burrell definitely not. Shearholtz is more of like I said, a defense guy, great arm. But Huff might be able to keep some value. He woke up last night with a good game, and if Belt continues to struggle, they might think about having Huff shuttle between left and first, and he'd get enough at bats to have value.
Let's move to the NL Central and a couple other disappointing teams. The Cardinals, if I recall my trivia correctly, have scored something like 3 runs or fewer in every single game this season. Their offense is sputtering.
Yeah, I mean, Pujols is batting below 200. Matt Holliday's out with the appendectomy. They got blown up on opening day when Ryan Franklin got lit up by Cameron Maben. So, yeah, the Cardinals are out of the box 2-4. Now they go to San Francisco, where they'll raise the World Series flag, and they'll have to deal with some of the emotion there. But I think things will get better for the Cardinals. I mean, Pujols isn't going to hit this badly. The news has been good with Holiday as far as getting back from the appendectomy. And they've had some good pitching. Jaime Garcia comes out after an awful spring and gets 9 Ks in his first start. And he's looking good. So I think that's a real surprise because people kind of let him slide in their drafts.
Well, if you've got Cardinals pitchers, I'd be a little bit wary of the upcoming road trip to Arizona. Got Cardinals hitters, put them in the lineup. Arizona.
Put him in the lineup in Arizona. It's the second highest ballpark to Coors Field as far as elevation, so balls tend to jump out of there. But I do like the pitching matchups in San Francisco and then in Dodger Stadium because there's nobody really in the Dodger lineup that really scares me that much.
Now, the Brewers, everyone expected them to be an offensive powerhouse this year, combined with a really good pitching staff. Zach Greinke hasn't returned yet, but they still haven't met their expectations yet.
No, they haven't. And
even with those guys out.
No, they have not. And Sean Markham came out and was not too good in his first outing, but he's doing a little bit better today. John Axford got blown up, but he came back last night and got a save. So things should look up for them too. I mean, Weeks and Braun and even Fielder to some extent are still hitting the ball. Weeks, he's been mentioned as one of the hottest starters along with Kinsler and Nelson Cruz. So there's still a lot of positives there. It's still early. People shouldn't, even though they're getting frustrated, shouldn't give up. Giovanni Gallardo was great, even though he only struck out 2 people in that start the other day. So I think things will eventually turn around for Milwaukee.
So let's sum this up. The Giants, not doing so hot. Brewers, Cardinals, not doing so hot. Pirates and Reds, they're really kicking it up early on. But overreactions, keep those tempered. The Giants' offense is still going to be surprisingly good. For those of us who remember the 2008 Giants and the 2007 Giants and the post-Bonds era, this offense is totally fine. It might be even be above average, so probably don't overreact to that. And then, of course, Brewers. And the Brewers, they're gonna bounce back. They've got the talent. And the Pirates, they're probably going to go back down to being who they were before.
Absolutely. I'd agree with all of that.
All right, George, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.